Okay, let's have a quick recap of what we have already looked at with Aristotle and with Plato and also with Democritus. And that's because I really like the pre-Socratics, and I think you can see a very logical movement in the first 7 or so pre-Socratics that we looked at on this course, starting with Thales and finishing with Democritus, where I think they asked some very interesting questions and they got to a position which was rationally and logically the case, or a very strong argument for how things actually are. And then we have Plato and Aristotle, and in my opinion their claims are not as strong as the claims of Democritus. Just my opinion there, and it's why I really like the pre-Socratics. I think they took us towards atomism. And obviously they did. Democritus is famous for being the first to, or one of the first, but maybe the first, to spread this idea of atoms and void. And then Plato had a different idea, and then Aristotle had an even different, another different idea once again, although he took some ideas, especially this idea of the forms from Plato, and changed it a little bit. So let's recap and let's discuss a couple of questions. And I hope to show you that even though I'm not that keen on some of these ideas from Aristotle, nonetheless, I'm going to try and give him the strongest possible argument, because I think there are some things, some claims that he makes, which are very interesting, even though perhaps Democritus is in a stronger position. So let's recap. Now, what we're looking at, really, what we're asking ourselves is 2 questions. What is substance? And what are things, particular things? And the reason why there are 2 questions here, because you might think, isn't that the same question? Well, no, it isn't really. Because what is substance? We're asking really, what is it that's eternal and unchangeable about the world? Yeah, you might consider substance this matter, for example, that underlies everything. It's a substratum, in which case there's only one substance, which you can see from the subject-verb agreement there. That's the singular form of the verb to be, and that's the plural form of the verb to be. And so here we're asking about what one thing is at the basis of everything, and because it's just one thing and it's at the basis, it's eternal, it's unchangeable. It's that world of being that we discussed when we looked at the pre-Socratics. But we're also asking about the world of becoming, because in this question, what are particular things? We're asking about the many, yeah, and we're asking about these transitory things, these things that have births and deaths, these things that don't exist forever. They're not eternal. They're constantly in flux, this world of becoming. And so we're asking these 2 questions, really, and that's precisely what the pre-Socratics were discussing, and it's certainly what Aristotle discusses in those 2 books that we have looked at, and it's certainly of interest to Plato as well. So let's recap. Democritus, what is substance? Well, I would argue that Democritus's interpretation is substance is 2 things. It's atoms and void. Yeah, so it's not just one thing, it's 2 things. It's at least 2 things, atoms and void. And what are particular things? And particular things always have properties. Yeah, Aristotle points out that substance, this prime matter that underlies everything, can't have any properties. Substance can't have properties because it's at the basis of everything. And if it had a property, then it wouldn't be a